Hello, my amazing children. This is Grandma Carla, and I am back with more of Pippi Longstocking. And this is a book by Astrid Lindgren, one of my favorites. It's a lot of fun. And today we're reading Chapter 4, Pippi Goes to School. Tommy and Annika went to school, of course. Every morning at 8 o'clock, they would trudge off, hand in hand with their school books under their arms. At that time of day, Pippi would usually be grooming her horse or getting Mr. Nielsen dressed in his little suit, or else she would be doing her morning exercises, which involved standing up straight and then doing 43 somersaults, one after another. Afterward, she would sit on the kitchen table in blissful silence, drink a big cup of coffee, and eat a cheese sandwich. Tommy and Annika would always cast a longing glance at Villa Villacula as they plodded off to school. They would much rather have gone over to play with Pippi. At least, if Pippi went to school too, things would have been better. "Just think how much fun we could have together when we walked home from school," said Tommy. "Yes, and on the way there too," said Annika. And the more they thought about it, the sadder it seemed that Pippi didn't go to school. Finally, they decided to try to convince her to start. Here's a picture of Pippi's cup of morning coffee. "You have no idea what a nice teacher we have," Tommy slyly told Pippi one afternoon when he and Annika went over to Villa Villacula after they had finished all of their homework. "If you only knew how much fun it is at school," Annika assured her. "I'd go crazy if I weren't allowed to go." Pippi was sitting on a stool in the middle of washing her feet in a basin. She didn't say a word, just wriggled her toes for a moment so that the water splashed all around. "You don't really have to be there very long," Tommy went on. "Only till 2 o'clock. "That's right, and then you get Christmas vacation and Easter vacation and summer vacation," said Annika. Pippi bit her big toe as she gave this some thought, but she still didn't say a word. All of a sudden, she seemed to make up her mind. She poured all of the water out onto the kitchen floor so that Mr. Nielsen, who was sitting nearby and playing with a mirror, got his pants completely soaked. "It's not fair," said Pippi sternly, not paying any attention to Mr. Nielsen's complaints about his wet pants. "It's absolutely not fair. I don't intend to put up with this." "With what?" said Tommy. "In 4 months it will be Christmas, and then you'll get to have a holiday. But what about me? What do I get?" Pippi sounded sad. "No Christmas vacation. Not even a little Christmas vacation," she complained. "Something has to change. Tomorrow I'm going to start school." Tommy and Annika clapped their hands with glee. "Hooray! Then we'll wait for you outside our front gate at 8 o'clock. "Oh no," said Pippi. "I can't start that early. And besides, I'm probably going to ride to school." And she did. At exactly 10 o'clock the following day, she lifted her horse down from the porch. A short time later, everyone in the little town dashed to the windows to see the horse that had bolted. Or rather, they thought it had bolted, but it hadn't. It was only Pippi, who was in a bit of a hurry to get to school. At full gallop, she raced into the playground, leaped off the horse before he even stopped, and tied him to a tree. Then she flung open the school door to the classroom with such a bang that Tommy and Annika and all their nice classmates gave a start as they sat in their desks. And here is a picture of everyone sitting in their desk and looking at Pippi as she barges into the classroom. I'm sure she wasn't very quiet. "Hey, everybody," hollered Pippi, swinging her big hat. "Am I in time for plutification?" Tommy and Annika had told their teacher that a new girl named Pippi Longstocking was going to be coming. Their teacher had also heard people in the little town talking about Pippi, and because she was a very kind and pleasant teacher, she had decided to do everything she could to make Pippi feel welcome at school. Pippi flung herself down on an empty chair before anyone even invited her to do so. But the teacher paid no attention to her brash behavior. She merely said in a friendly voice, "Welcome to school, Pippi dear. I hope that you'll be happy here and that you'll learn a great deal." "Yes, well, I hope that I'll get a Christmas vacation," said Pippi. "That's why I've come here. Fair's fair, after all." "First, if you wouldn't mind giving me your full name," said the teacher, "then I can register you for school." "My name is Pipalata, Comestibbles, Window Shade, Curly Mint, Ephraim's daughter Longstocking, the daughter of Captain Ephraim Longstocking, formerly the terror of the high seas, now king of the natives." Pippi was really just a nickname because Papa thought that Pipalata was too long to say. "I see," said the teacher. "All right then, we'll call you Pippi too. But perhaps we should test your knowledge a bit," she went on. "You're a big girl, and I'm sure you already know quite a lot. Perhaps we could start with arithmetic. Now, Pippi, tell me, how much is 7 plus 5? Pippi looked at her, both surprised and annoyed. Then she said, "If you don't know the answer yourself, I have no intention of telling you." All of the children stared at Pippi in horror. The teacher explained to her that she wasn't allowed to talk back to teachers that way at school, and she was supposed to address the teacher as ma'am. "Please forgive me," Pippi apologized. "I didn't know that. I won't do it again." "Well, I hope not," said the teacher. "So now I'll tell you that 7 plus 5 equals 12. "You see," said Pippi, "you knew it all along. Why did you have to ask me? Oh, what an idiot I am. I forgot to say ma'am again. Sorry," she said, and then she pinched herself hard on the ear. The teacher decided to ignore this, and she went on, "All right, Pippi, how much do you think 8 plus 4 is?" "About 67 or so," Pippi guessed. "Not at all," said the teacher. 8 plus 4 equals 12. "Now, wait a minute, my dear lady, that's going too far," said Pippi. "You just told me that 7 plus 5 equals 12. I should think there have to be some rules, even at school. Besides, if you get such childish delight out of silly things like this, why don't you go and sit by yourself in the corner to do arithmetic and leave us in peace so that we can play tag?" "Oh, no, now I forgot to say ma'am again," she cried in horror. "Could you please forgive me just one last time? I'll try to remember a little better from now on." The teacher agreed to do this, but she didn't think it was such a good idea to try to teach Pippi any more arithmetic. Instead, she started asking the other children questions. "Tommy, can you give me the correct answer to this problem?" she said. "If Lisa has 7 apples and Axel has 9 apples, how many apples do they have altogether?" "Yes, let's hear your answer, Tommy," Pippi piped in. "And at the same time, tell me this. If Lisa has a stomachache and Axel has an even worse stomachache, whose fault is it? And where did they swipe those apples from?" The teacher tried to pretend that she hadn't heard a thing, and she turned to Annika. "All right, Annika, here's a problem for you. Gustav went on a school outing with his classmates. He had 1 krona when he left and 7 öre when he came back home. How much money did he spend?" "Hey," said Pippi, "I also want to know, why was he such a spendthrift, and did he buy lemonade with his money, and did he wash behind his ears properly before he left home?" The teacher decided to give up on arithmetic altogether. She thought Pippi might like learning to read instead, and so she took out a sweet little picture of an iguana. In front of the iguana's nose was the letter I. "All right, Pippi, now I'm going to show you something fun," and she said briskly, "Here you see an iguana, and this letter in front of it is an I." "Oh, no, I don't think so," said Pippi. "I think it looks like a stick with a little fly speck on the top, and I'd really like to know what an iguana has to do with a fly speck." The teacher took out the next picture, which showed a snake, and she told Pippi that the letter in the front was an S. "Speaking of snakes," said Pippi, "I'll never forget the time that I wrestled with a giant snake in India. It was the most horrible snake you could imagine. He was 40 feet long and angry as a hornet, and every day he ate 5 grown Indians, plus 2 little children for dessert." And here's a picture of something like was on the card that the teacher was showing to the classroom. Once he wanted to have me for dessert too, and he wrapped himself around me. Crunch. But I have sailed the 7 seas after all, I told him, and I bonked him on the head. Bam! And then he started hissing. And then I hit him again. Bam! And poof, he died. So that's the letter S. How amazing! Pippi had to pause to catch her breath, and the teacher, who was beginning to think that Pippi was a troublesome and difficult child, suggested that the class should do some drawing instead. Surely Pippi would be able to sit quietly and draw, thought the teacher. She took out paper and pens and passed them out to the children. You can draw whatever you like, she said, as she sat down at her desk and started correcting homework. After a while, she looked up to see how the drawing was going. All of the children were sitting there watching Pippi, who was lying on the floor drawing to her heart's content. Pippi, said the teacher impatiently, why aren't you drawing on the piece of paper? I filled it up long ago. I couldn't get my horse on that tiny scrap of paper, said Pippi. Right now I'm drawing his front legs, and when I get to the tail I'll probably have to go out into the hallway. The teacher thought hard for a moment. Why don't we sing a little song instead, she suggested. All the children stood up next to their desk, all except Pippi, who was still lying on the floor. Go ahead and sing, she said. I'll just rest for a while. All this learning can be too much for even the strongest person. And here's a picture of Pippi lying flat out drawing on the floor. You can see how she's drawing the legs of the horse on the floor. I'm sure the teacher is just a little bit exasperated, don't you think? We don't draw on the floor, do we? But now the teacher had lost all patience. She told the other children to go out on the playground because she wanted to have a private conversation with Pippi. When the teacher and Pippi were alone, Pippi stood up and went over to the desk. You know what, she said. You know what, ma'am? It was really fun to come here and see what all you do. But I don't think I feel like coming to school anymore. I'll just have to make do without a Christmas vacation. There are just too many apples and iguanas and snakes and things like that. It makes my head spin. I hope you're not disappointed, ma'am. But the teacher said that she did feel disappointed, mainly because Pippi didn't want to try to behave properly, and because a girl who behaved the way Pippi did couldn't be allowed to come to school, no matter how much she might want to. Have I behaved badly? Asked Pippi, very surprised. Oh, and I didn't even know it, she said, looking woeful. Nobody could look as woeful as Pippi when she was sad. She was silent for a moment, and then she said in a quavering voice, You have to understand, ma'am, that if a girl's mama is an angel, and her papa is king of the natives, and if she herself has spent her whole life sailing the seas, then she doesn't really know how to behave at school among all of these apples and iguanas. Then the teacher said she understood, and that she wasn't annoyed at Pippi anymore, and that perhaps Pippi could come back to school when she was a little older. And then Pippi, beaming with joy, said, I think you're awfully nice, ma'am, and here's something for you. So from her pocket, Pippi took out an elegant little gold watch, which she placed on the desk. The teacher said that she couldn't accept such an expensive gift. But Pippi said, You have to. Otherwise, I'll come back tomorrow, and then there will really be a commotion. After that, Pippi dashed out to the playground and leapt onto her horse. All of the children crowded around her to pat the horse and see her off. Give me the schools in Argentina any time, said Pippi, sounding a bit haughty as she looked down at the children. You should try going there. Easter vacation starts only 3 days after Christmas vacation ends. And when the Easter vacation is over, there are 3 days until summer vacation starts. Summer vacation ends on the very 1st of November. And then, of course, it's quite a while before Christmas vacation starts on November the 11th. But it's bearable because at least there's no homework. It's strictly forbidden to do homework in Argentina. Sometimes an Argentinian boy might sneak into a cupboard and sit there and secretly do homework, but I feel sorry for him if his mother finds out they don't have any arithmetic in the schools there. If anyone knows how much 7 plus 5 is, and if he's silly enough to mention it to the teacher, he has to stand in the corner all day long. Reading is something they only do on Fridays, and then only if they have some books to read, but they never do. Well, what do they do at school then? Asked a little boy. They eat candy, said Pippi firmly. There's a long pipe that goes from the nearby candy factory straight into the classroom, and the candy comes gushing out all day long, and the kids can hardly keep up with the eating of it. But what does the teacher do? Asked a girl. She unwraps the candy for the children, silly, said Pippi. You don't really think that they do that themselves, do they? Hardly. And they don't actually go to school themselves either. They send their brothers. Pippi swung her big hat. Bye now, kids, she shouted happily. You won't be seeing me for a while, but don't ever forget how many apples Axel had, or you'll be sorry. Ha ha ha. With a resounding laugh, Pippi rode out through the gate, making the gravel fly under the horse's hooves and rattling the window panes of the school. And look at all of the candy that Pippi was describing. Of course, we would call Pippi's story a tall tale, wouldn't we? I'm sure that in Argentina they go to school just the same as they do everywhere else, and they have to learn arithmetic and reading just the same as they do anywhere else. But Pippi knows how to tell a tall tale. And that is the end of chapter 4. And this is Grandma Carla, and I love you.